Hello, scrappers and recyclers. Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every week we talk about precious metals, industrial metals, safety items, and things that are happening in our industry that affect our world of scrapping and recycling. It is great to be with you all. I see that electronic scrapper was first into the chat today. David Philly followed closely thereafter. Sixth Street Garage, Scrapping Irish, welcome. Great to have you all here. I'm sure we'll be having some more folks join us as we move along. Now, our main prime or our precious metal discussion today. Sorry, we had a little bit of a technical malfunction there. Our precious metal discussion this week is going to be gold. Boy, gold has been on a tear. Mike's Meltdown, E-Waste Mike, great to have you all here. But it did also kind of flatten out just a little bit. So let's dive in here and take a look at what's going on. Now, the first thing we do is we look at the APMEX chart. Now, again, I am not sponsored by APMEX. I get nothing in return. They're just a site that I have used for my purchase and selling of physical gold and silver. I highly recommend everybody have some physical gold and silver in your portfolio, and APMEX is a great place to get that. But there's plenty of others out there as well. Now, what we see going on here in the 24-hour is interesting because early in the period, we saw things were climbing a little bit, and then we had this correction going on, and then it starts climbing again. And this story is going to play out here in a bit more. Let's look at the 3-day period. You see this even stronger where we were over here, where we were cooking along. Then we had this drop, and then we were somewhat level. Then we had another huge drop, and then we started climbing back out again. When we look at the week, we see really what's going on here is the market got so hot that some investors decided to take some money off the table. The prices get really high. People that have gold, they say to themselves, well, maybe it's time for me to get some money. Maybe it's time for me to sell some of this. And so we see people selling off into this big high market in the hopes of making some money. And that can cause a correction or the flattening of the price that we see going on. As we go look at the month, we can see we're climbing up. We're up 2.5%. If we look at the 3-month, we're up 14.72%. And if we look at that's the year to date, let's just go right here to the year. We can see that we are very nicely climbing throughout the year, and we're up 44.78%. If we pop over here to the trading economics chart, we see the pattern in a little more detail. This is 1 year of trading, so it's still the 1-year chart. It looks a little bit different because of the granularity here. These are 1-day brackets, and that becomes clearer when we go to the candlestick. You can see each candlestick represents a day, and we have a little better understanding. We can see why it looks a little more jagged, but it is otherwise the same story going on here. And if we look right up here, this is that correction that was playing out. Let's slide back in. Let's go back to the line chart here. And what you can see in the discussion here is that the gold price has declined about 1%. Still over 3,000 an ounce, weighed down by a stronger US dollar and profit taking. So that's where I was talking about, where people were selling at these highs in order to get some of their money back. And despite the pullback, bullion has risen 0.7% this week. And it's being supported by persistent geopolitical tensions and the expectations of U.S. Federal Reserve rate cuts. You think about what is going on out there in the world right now. You've got the Trump administration that is playing this game of tariffs and bashing or going after former trading partners. You've got the European Union tightening up with each other. You've got Canada expanding their markets as a result of what the Trump administration is doing. You've got the situation in Gaza heating up again. We have the unknown of what's going on with the Russia-Ukraine war. And so all of this uncertainty, all of these unknowns cause investors to go to safe havens, and gold is considered the primary safe haven. So we can really expect that gold is going to continue to climb. A correction is not at all unexpected. That's what happens. Prices get going really hot. Some investors decide to cash in or get some of the money off the table, and so they sell, and that will cause prices to come down a little bit, but then they'll start back up again. And if we take a look at the forecast, we can see exactly that story played out here. Draw your attention to this part of the chart, and you can very clearly see that the forecast is for gold to climb. And in the discussion, they say that by the end of this quarter, we should be up around 3,062 and some change. And then in the 12 months ahead, 31,081. So almost 32. So, 3182. So definitely some good future in gold right now. What does that mean for us? It means some good things. With all of the uncertainty and stuff aside, as purely from the perspective of a scrapper or a recycler who has materials that they're looking to sell or extract gold from, these are some good indicators. It means that our yards will probably continue to increase prices, or at least not go down, for our circuit boards and gold bearing material. There might be a little bit of a rise here. Right now, I'm sure that places like boardsort.com and the other big buyers of gold bearing material are having some very interesting discussions about how should they raise prices, how much should they raise prices? Because remember, they will have to build up a large quantity of this material. Then they're going to sell it to a refining company that isn't going to pay them right away. So it might be 3 or 4 months before one of these big yards or boardsort.com gets paid for the material. Now, how much they get paid is all going to be dependent upon the contracts that they have with the refiners that they use. So it is a very interesting challenge that they have to deal with. But the bottom line for us in our world is that prices should remain really strong on our printed circuit boards. All right, well, I am going to go over and see what you all think about what we've been seeing going on here. Let's take a look at the comments. Plus, we'll see who else has joined us. Let's see here. HH Recycling is in. She Scraps is in the house. Welcome. Great to have you all here. Roger at CU Scrapping is in the house. Great to have you here. Ed Weber has joined us. Plain Scrapper is with us. And let's see. So Ed Weber is saying that all prices are up at his yard, especially aluminum, 65 cents a pound for cans, 70 cents for MLC. Very cool. Not a gold discussion, but it's good to see the prices. If you sold some material this week, please feel free to drop some comments. about what you got from your yards. If you are working at a yard or have a special relationship with a yard like Roger does, let us know what you're hearing from your yards, because that's where the rubber meets the road, at the yards. Should you be buying gold? Wow, that is a hard issue right now. I mean, gold prices are really high, and yes, they're going to climb. You've got the potential to maybe make another 100 or so here over the course of the next year. So you could potentially buy some gold now, especially if you can get a low premium and then still make money in the next 12 months, assuming gold does what we believe it's going to do. So you have the potential to be able to make some money on gold, even at these prices. But you're in a high risk area, because if things turn around, uh, if things start to settle down, gold prices could very quickly fall back down again, and then you'd be stuck with some expensive gold. I am not planning on buying any gold right now, and I might sell a couple ounces. I'm debating on that. My problem is that the gold that I have, they're just some beautiful mint coins, and I have more bullion in the form of silver than I do in the form of gold. So I'm not sure right now if I'm going to sell my gold, any gold or not. But I'm not buying any gold. I will be, of course, selling a lot of circuit boards and stuff, and I'm pushing those as I have a reasonable amount of material to sell, because I need the cash flow. I know the prices are going to keep going up. I know I'm going to have more material coming in. So I'm not going to play the hold it game and hope to max out at the other end. I know that a lot of you will like to play that game, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that. But those of us that need the cash flow, this is a great thing for us, because we can be selling this material every week, every other week, and it's going to keep getting us more cash flow coming in. Oh, let's see here. Freaking Awesome has joined the gang. Welcome here, Dork Scrapper. Welcome. Great to have you all here. William Wallert's here. Welcome. Ba, 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 ba. It is great to have you all here today. All righty. Well, our safety note today. Last week, the issue came up about trains and train safety. So I promised that we would talk about train safety. And I went and did some research to have some real numbers here, because we all know that train safety is important, but I was actually very surprised at the number of train incidents that occur. Now, some of you don't know this about me. I used to be the chief operating officer of a small logistics company. And one of the contracts that we had was we were loading and unloading automobiles on the Amtrak auto train. Because we were on the railroad property and dealing with railroad systems, we all had to go through the federally mandated and approved train safety training. So I learned a lot about train and train safety and such from that firsthand. And then, of course, we used to live in Florida, in Jacksonville, where there was a lot of train activity, a lot of train crossings. And I saw a number of near misses and actual events. In fact, I was on the auto train one time when it hit a vehicle, and it is the classic situation. The driver of the vehicle, it was a pickup truck with a trailer full of scrap. So it's just classic for us, right? And the driver did not pull forward enough. So either the driver didn't realize that part of the trailer was still hanging back in the way of the train, or he thought he was going to be able to get through, or I don't know what the situation was. But at any rate, the train that I was on, we hit the trailer, um, and it wasn't a bad hit. It didn't. I mean, it caused the trailer to flip, of course, but it didn't jackknife the pickup truck, and there were no injuries. But what happens when a train strikes a vehicle or a person is that the you have to, of course, the emergency services have to show up, and then they have to clear the train to move, and then the train has to go to a offline. The crew is replaced, and the crew then gets drug tested, or and tested for any impairment that may have gone on. They have to make a formal statement. There's a little investigation, and then the train starts moving again. What that meant for me in that particular situation was I was like 12 hours late getting to the destination because of all the delays associated with that. So, train safety, very, very important. In the United States, there are an average of 2,000 uh, train vehicle kind of incidents a year. And in that, there are roughly an average of 200 fatalities. In 2024, there were 2,246 collisions, 266 fatalities, and 744 injuries. And this always, well, always is such a strong word, but based on what I've observed and what I've read, this just about always comes down to the driver of the car or the truck or whatever um, did something wrong in the intersection. They stopped on the tracks. Part of their vehicle was on the tracks. They tried to race the train. I have literally seen people drive around the barricade arms, along the track, and over around the other barricade arms to try to get across that intersection because they didn't want to wait for the train. Absolutely stupid, because you will lose every single time. The train can weigh an average freight train here in the United States can weigh 95,000 tons. Think about that, 95,000 tons. That is a lot of mass that is moving. And your little car is not going to, it doesn't matter how big your car is, you're not going to win. And it can take a train a mile or more to stop. So when you think about trains going 40, 50 miles an hour, there can, you're not going to win in that situation. So it is very important that when the lights start blinking and the arms come down, you keep the train track clear. Do not get stuck on that track. If you pull up to a railroad crossing and there's cars in front of you, don't pull up on the railroads, the crossing, and wait for the light to turn on the other side. Wait behind the arm, even if it's up, wait for it. Wait until the intersection is fully clear so that you can get your vehicle all the way across those tracks. I used to see this in Florida all the time. There'd be a traffic light and there would be a couple of cars that would be clear of the tracks on the other side. And then some idiot would pull up on the tracks, and you're waiting for the light to turn, and then a train shows up. So it is really bad. Semi trucks, yes, Mike. Semi trucks can have a huge challenge there. They will frequently, it's not uncommon that they're the ones that get hit. Um, and the other thing that can happen is because railroad tracks are designed and engineered to a superior level of stability compared to roads, the tracks will be higher than the roads. You've probably all seen this. Frequently, you go up over a bump when you go over the track, and that's because the track doesn't settle the way the roads are settling around it. Excuse me. So one of the things that has happened is that stretch limousines will bottom out, trailers will bottom out, and then they're stuck on the track. So it's a bad. That's really bad because you get bottom out and your wheels aren't going to traction and you can't get out of the way, and you need to get towed off. Or in one case, I saw that the situation was so desperate that the limo driver just told the guy behind him, "Push me, just push the thing, just run into me." Um, so you got to really pay attention to that. Now, in most railroad crossings, there will be signs around there that will have a phone number that if something happens and the intersection, the railroad crossing is blocked, you can call this phone number and it should alert a dispatcher that there is a block crossing. It's very challenging. So you want to, you want to watch for that. If you're at an intersection and there's a blockage, look around and see if there's a sign somewhere that has a phone number that you can report. Now, if all else fails, call 911, but do try to do something to report a blockage so that they can try to stop the trains before they get there. Always assume that a train is going to come down the tracks. Don't walk on the tracks. I say as a kid who used to walk the tracks. And don't underestimate how deceiving the speed of a train can be. You have probably yourself sat there and looked at a train coming, and you're thinking to yourself, "Man, that train's moving really slow. Why is it taking so long to get here?" And then all of a sudden, it's just whizzing past you, and that's because the as it's approaching you, it can be very deceptive how fast the train is actually going, and it can cover a lot of ground really fast. So don't underestimate the speed of the train. Don't ever try to challenge the train because you will lose. Bottom line, you will lose, and you don't want to. You don't want to risk that. Now, the three states with the most number of traffic crossings collisions are Texas at 283, California at 185, and Florida at 125. Just little tidbits of knowledge about trains that you would you might not think about. So let's see what kind of experience and questions have come up about trains here. Let's go up here. No, I did not get hit by a train. I was on a train that hit a trailer. I did not get hit. Yeah, let's see what else we got going here. Yeah, yeah, that's a lot of that would be a lot of that's a lot of steel, isn't it? Um, yeah, Mike, I've seen some pretty interesting videos. I imagine most of us have where the trailer is across the tracks and the train just blasts right through it, blows a hole right through it. E-Waste Joe, welcome to the show. Great to have you here. La, 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 la. No, Jill, I have no idea about what was going on with the comments on nickel and lithium. I did not look at that this week. Um, Yeah, and you definitely want to look for those emergency call numbers at the crossing because that will alert the dispatcher, and the dispatcher can alert the train, and that can happen much faster than calling 911. So you always want to look for the signs at the crossing that'll put you directly in contact with a dispatcher. Freaking Awesome says that his trailer had downs connected to the truck from the trailer, broke down on a track once for about 2 hours, and train had time to stop and help us out. Oh, well, boy, that was lucky. You were lucky on that one. Let's see. Um, we've got some pricing coming in from Ed. I'm going to come back to that in a minute here. I want to see if there's any other train things. Let's see. JR Cat says he's seen a train that and the tree lost. Yeah, yeah. Ed, Ed looks like Ed. I must have missed a comment up here. Oh, I see what we're. I see. It was buried in your train in your comment about the prices. Um, he had two uncles that were hit by trains. Oh man, that's yeah, that's rough. That's rough. One was disabled for the rest of his life, and the other one died. Yeah. Um, yeah, you don't win with trains. You just don't win with trains. And I tell you, having been around trains a lot because of when I worked on the trains, um, you have to have some serious respect for for trains. It's just it's amazing, and I would love being at the yard. I loved watching trains moving around. I used to love being on the trains, but it gives you a whole new respect for the trains when you've worked on trains yourself and seen what's going on. All righty. Well, those were some good comments. Let's get back up here to Ed's comment about some pricing here. So, Ed, his shred was 9 cents a pound per pound steer, 11 clean yellow brass, 230 sealed units, 20. Cool. Good price update there. Yeah, I'm still at 7 cents a pound here. They haven't changed our shred price at all here. Okay, well, trains, be very, very careful around trains. Watch out for trains. You will lose if you try to race or, uh, you know, take on the train. So just the best thing to do is just stop and enjoy the show and be safe because trains can kill you. They can just kill you. All right, so it is time to get on to our industrial metal discussion. And today's industrial metal is copper. And we're loving what's going on with copper too right now. Copper, you can see here on the Trading Economics site, we see the copper went over $5 a pound. So that is very nice. Let's see, what is their discussion talking about here? Copper futures rose to 510 a pound, testing record highs and trading near record premiums. We're going to talk more about this issue here in a minute. The London Metal Exchange futures are up 0.5 per pound as the risk of trades by the Trump administration stress capacity for domestic smelters. And the president signed a executive order to initiate a review on copper. Because before he was talking about aluminum, now they're talking about copper as well. So there is a lot of concern and a lot of attention being paid to copper from that respect, because it would increase the dependency on domestic capacity, which is limited because we only have here in the US two major smelters. And the US imports nearly half of its copper. In the meantime, the demand from the top consumer in China remained underpinned by a pickup in manufacturing activity and pledges of wider deficit spending. I'm going to talk more about this in a minute too, because this is interesting what's going on over in China. All right, so let's go back down here. We see this is the 1 year chart. We have a day of trading. Let's take a look at the candlesticks. Let's zoom in here. And what we can see is that copper prices rose, and then they started banging off of this this top here at just over 5. They just couldn't quite bust through that. So they call that, technical traders call that resistance. They're saying, they keep hitting it and they can't get past it. When you hear people on the talking heads on the various money channels talk about resistance, this is kind of a classic example. What they're saying is the price keeps hitting that and it just can't get through it. When you hear them talking about support, what they're saying is that at the other end, when you're down here, the prices aren't getting below. It hits that and then it starts climbing again. So that's just to help you understand a little bit of what those technical traders like to talk about. But we have a really good feeling, I think, in this community that prices will probably, in the long term, go up. Let's see, what does Trading Economics predict? Yeah, they're showing prices climbing as well. If you take a look right here, so in the by the end of the quarter, we should be seeing 518, and in the next 12 months, almost 5.5, so 5.49. But there's some really interesting stuff going on with copper that that bears a lot of discussion. So in the U.S., this report said that we have 2 smelters, and that our copper comes in from mainly 3 places: Chile, Canada, and Peru, with Chile being the #1 importer of copper into the United States. Here in the United States, we have a lot of copper. We have reserves in Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, Nevada, and Montana. The issue is that we've had many years where our smelters closed down, either because there wasn't enough demand for the copper they were refining, the energy prices got too expensive, they didn't want to invest in the equipment necessary to meet the air, water, and ground pollution standards that were being enforced. It's we slowly lost our smelting capacity here in the United States. We still have some. What I was unable to determine with a level of detail that I would like is, can we make up the capacity that we need with our own organic capabilities? Based on what I have seen, I don't think we can. I don't think we have enough smelting capacity. We may have sufficient reserves of copper ore. We just don't have the smelters to produce it as fast as the United States would consume it, which is why we import so much of our copper. The other piece of it is the secondary copper, the refined copper. That's the big area that we generally feed as scrappers. So we feed a relatively decent percentage in the secondary market. But the real source of secondary copper, it's still technically secondary copper because it's the waste from copper that is being machined or used for something. So the copper ore, that's primary refining or smelting, you get that that virgin copper. It goes to a plant, they make something, their shavings and cutoffs and stuff are then considered secondary when they go back to a secondary smelter. And that's actually where most of the secondary copper in the United States come from, are these plants that are selling their shavings and cutoffs and stuff back into the secondary refiners. So, one of the issues that we run into, and one of the reasons why smelters in the United States shut down, is because you have to have someplace to sell your copper. China, over in their history, they started growing and they had a huge demand for copper. They needed so much copper that it was impossible for them to smelt enough ore and make enough primary copper to meet their own demand. So China was buying literally shiploads of scrap to make recycled copper, secondary copper, to meet the demand of their growing population and their growing construction and their industry. Well, now they have another problem because they have too much capacity. So and this is where I was saying I wanted to address this interesting premium thing. So one of the challenges that the Chinese smelters are dealing with now is that there's so much smelting capacity in China that they have to pay more for the ore to keep their smelting operation running than what they can make selling the copper material. So it's a reverse situation for the smelters. They used to make enough money getting paid to smelt the ore that was a big part of their revenue stream, was what they would get paid to smelt the ore and then sell the copper. But the demand isn't there. So what a lot of the Chinese smelting operations are doing is they're putting their plants into maintenance. And March is a time period when they would normally be ramping up operations, but they're putting a lot of their plants into maintenance right now. So the Chinese demand for copper is starting to slow down. And they have so much capacity that the government is going to have to try to make some decision on how they're going to deal with this. You think about here in the United States, if we don't have the industrial demand for copper, it doesn't matter if we can smelt a lot of copper, because they have to have someplace to sell the copper to make it worth it. And of course, copper takes a lot of energy to smelt copper ore. Secondary copper doesn't require as much energy and is less polluting. So, that's a good place for the secondary market. Plus, the experts have looked at what the potential world supply of copper is out there. And the experts have said that there isn't going to be enough copper to meet the future demands of society. So we are in this weird situation as recyclers now, because you've got this future where there just simply isn't going to be enough copper. And so secondary copper will become much more valuable. But yet right now, because some countries have created so much capacity to smelt copper, the prices are going to maybe go down because, we've got in some places too much copper. So there's this really weird dichotomy going on with copper markets. By the way, if you, as we talked about, similar to last week, I was trying to figure out what it would cost to start a new smelting operation. And it depends, of course, on the size of the smelting operation. But the numbers that I've found for a large, industrial scale smelting operation would be about 1.5 to 3.7 billion dollars to create a new modern copper smelting operation. Now, copper has an advantage in that you could potentially do what they call a medium scale operation, and that could still be profitable. And in that case, you're only talking about millions to hundreds of millions of dollars, depending upon where you're located and stuff. So again, these things are not inexpensive to get started to make, and most of the older plants, as best that I can determine, have been sold off. They're not functional. The way they've been shut down, you're not going to restart them. It's an interesting challenge. Um, and we as recyclers, scrappers, well, we're happy with what's going on right now because the copper prices are going up, and with all of the confusion and the uncertainty, there's going to be places buying copper just so that they've got their copper, so that depending upon how things play out, they're in a good situation. All right. Well, let's see what you all have to say about copper and what you have observed out there. Da, 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 da. So freaking awesome is saying that so somebody got 230 for yellow brass, but down here in Texas it's only 125. Okay. So a few more comments on shred. I saw that JR Cat got 9 cents. William got 15. Wow, man, that's pretty nice. I'm trying to think. When I was down in Florida, I do remember getting 14 cents a pound. Uh, all right. Anyway, and there's the little plug from Scrapping Irish to hit the thumbs up. Appreciate it, Irish. Let's see. All right. Ed is saying that his copper is stuck at 390 for Bear Bright. He's hoping that it'll bump up soon. Okay. I did not take copper in this week, so I don't know. I don't know what's going on with copper right now at my local yard. Williams got 430. Okay. All right. Freaking awesome is at 330 for copper. Okay. All right. Wow, man, you're bringing in 20,000 pounds that is some serious copper, man. You are doing it. You are like big time. That's some big time operation there, man. I think you probably are bringing in more than any of us in this whole operation here. That is fantastic. Um, let's see. Freaking awesome is saying that Ohio Casting still has a foundry here in the U.S. Yep, very cool. Um, let's see. I'm looking for. All right, Mike. Whoops, here we are. Mike's got $2 a pound, not 20. Okay. Bear Bright electronic scrappers getting 372. And this is where William's getting all his copper. He does large scale collections with 3,500 homes. Man, that's awesome. That is awesome. Of course, in my new operation, because I'm focused almost exclusively on electronic scrap, I don't get the big stuff anymore. So I'm not getting HVAC systems. I'm not getting the big, huge cable runs and stuff like I was getting when I was in Florida, because those aren't the clients that I'm focused on right now. So there's it was a conscious decision to which way to take the business up here. But that's a great plan and a great business opportunity that you're pulling there. That's a great way to do it. Ba, ba, ba. And we're doing good. I've got some good steady flow material coming in. I keep expanding and looking with bringing on new clients, and in fact this week I am going to be driving over to Charlotte. I may have a new buyer in Charlotte for some material, so we'll be heading over there this week to. Well, I have to. They're going to buy. Or they're going to buy. They're going to take some CRTs from me. I have to pay them to take the CRTs. But while I'm there, I'm going to learn more about their operations and their prices and see if there's an opportunity to work with them because they're only a couple hours away. So for lower grade materials, it may allow me to open up my market a bit more. William also does work with utility companies. Yeah, that's a great source. If you've got an in with the utility companies. I tried to work something out with Duke Energy here after the storm, and first I had to convince them that I was a legitimate business. And once they understood that I was a legitimate business, then they by that time they had already had contracts with folks for dealing with all the wire and cable and stuff that was down from the storm. So I wasn't able to take advantage of that. Hello, everyday sellers. Welcome to the show. Great to have you here. Let's see. Shark, try URT, no cost for CRT TV. I'm not quite sure where you're going with that. What do you mean by URT? Um, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it. Can you spell out URT or explain what you mean there a little bit more? Okay, so good discussion on copper. We've got a lot that's going to happen in our world of copper. So hang on and keep moving your copper. You probably could get away with holding on to some copper right now if you have some, because all the market indicators suggest that the prices are going to go up. And so if you have some copper and you don't need the cash flow, you might want to hang on to it because you could probably do pretty well here in the not too distant future with your copper, certainly over the course of the next year. But I would, if you need the cash flow, this is great because we're making good money on our copper right now. Let's see now. Freaking awesome is that I bet shipping will be cheaper if they're closer to Shark Scrapper. I can't imagine what it costs to ship a pallet of boards to board sort. Well, I can tell you what it costs to ship a pallet of boards to board sort. Matter of fact, let's see. Hang on just a second, and I will. I will take a look at this from a couple of recent shipments that I did. Oh, let's see. So I sent a pallet off to board sort not too long ago. It cost me $384. And that was 1,600 pounds or something like that. So it's it's not terrible, but and in fact, it is less per pound to ship a pallet of material because I'm shipping under what they call LTL, less than truckload rates. So it allows me to ship material that I could not otherwise ship from Florida because it wasn't cost effective. But the combination of being closer to board sort and shipping using LTL rates now, there's material that I actually can make money on now that I couldn't make money on before. But it would be nice if I can just ship across the state rather than all the way up to board sort, because it would be less miles and therefore be a little less expensive. So we will see. We'll see. In fact, I did a shipment to Mint Innovation, to a place. They had me ship it to a receiver in Charlotte, and that was a couple $100. So yeah, it's cheaper shipping it to Charlotte than it is up to board sort. So it all depends on pricing too. All righty, let's see. William, I do not know. I think this place consolidates the material and sells it on to somebody else. I do not believe that they are separating the leaded glass, the plain glass, and recovering the lead themselves. I believe they simply consolidate it and then ship it off to somebody else. That's my understanding. Let's see. All righty. Okay, so let's uh, yeah, that was freaking awesome. That was, those are pretty good prices. So it's it's real nice to be able to do LTL loads now. It's saving me a lot of money. Scrapping together. Welcome, Bill. Great to have you here. Okay, let's see. Let us get one now with our stock discussion today. I just wanted to remind everybody that I get my stock information from the Value Line Investment Survey. They do not take advertising. They are strictly subscription based. So very unbiased, down to earth. They look at the numbers. They look at the reports that the companies are publishing themselves. So very good information here. And this was issue 8, and issue 8 included the building materials industry, home building, retail building supply, furniture supply, paper and forest products, packaging and containers, household products, investment industry, and the power industry. And a name that I think most of you are probably familiar with jumped out as, and we've talked about this company before in earlier episodes, but there is a company called, bum, let's see, here we are, there and there. It's a packaging company called Sunoco Products. Their ticker is SON. Now look at this yield, 4.4% as of the 14th of March. And the share price is only $47.28. So that's pretty good. It's a reasonable price point that most folks can get into. And at 4.4%, it's a good dividend yield. Those of you that are new, you may not understand my process for picking stocks, but I look at the last 17 years of cash flow per share, earnings per share, and dividends per share. And I want to see 17 years of increasing cash flow, earnings per share, or dividends per share before I will consider investing in that company. On these charts, when you see this, that says that they are qualified as a cash flow one, which means they had 1 year of decreasing cash flow per share. Right there, you can see it. They're not qualified by the earnings, but that's okay. They are qualified as a Div 0, which means 17 years of increasing dividends per share, no down or flat years at all inside there. So that's really good. They don't have to meet all three, they just have to meet one. And because I am a very boring dividend investor, I want to see them really hit the nail on the head with dividends per share. That's where I want to see the real money from them. And that's what Sunoco did. Here's their graphic representation so you can see that they were doing really well with their cash flow and their earnings, but they had a little bit of trouble right here. Let's see, what this was 2004. They had a little trouble. They climbed back out of that. But look at this dividends per share. They've had a nice steady increase all the way across. It's as if their board of directors and shareholders have said, this is how much we're going to increase every year to keep investors happy. We're going to stay right around that 4% mark to keep everybody happy. Sunoco products, for those of you that want a few particulars, they are a leading producer of paper products, tubes and cores and flexible packaging and rigid plastic containers. They do a lot of, they're just packaging, right? Composite cans, protective partitions, point of purchase displays. They are international. Let's see. They have been doing some transitions where they've been selling off some low earning groups of the business, investing in other groups of the business. That's the sort of stuff that you expect large international companies to do. Roughly a third of their revenues are derived from foreign operations, with 315 owned and leased facilities in 40 countries. So it's unclear how the prospective tariffs will impact their operations. This is where things get really interesting for international businesses, because international businesses, they like stability, they like things to be calm so they can plan, so they understand, where the numbers are going to be. And when you have the instability like the tariff war that's going on here, it really makes it hard for them to understand how they should plan their operations. What revenues are going to be generated from what companies? Do they need to open up a new plant in one place because they're not producing the right materials in that country and they need to avoid the tariffs? That's a huge investment. By the time they make the investment, will things have changed? So there's a lot that goes on with these international companies. Plus, they're dealing with currencies around the world. And so they have to do what's called hedging the currency values to try to understand what, the pound might be worth or the euro might be worth a year from now or 2 years from now, against the dollar and vice versa. So these things are very complex decisions. There are massive amounts of time and energy that get spent in trying to understand this. Sunoco has demonstrated that they're good at it. And that's why if you are looking for a place to do some investing, to derive some dividends, some income over the long haul, Sunoco might be a company for you to consider looking at. Now, I do want to emphasize that I am not a licensed broker or trader. I can't give you legal advice on, how to do this. You need to understand what the implications are for your own portfolio and for your tax situation and such. So please do your due diligence before you make any investments that I might suggest. But this is probably a good company to look at to add into your portfolio. And it is kind of a defensive stock in the sense that it's the packaging material for a lot of the stuff that we all need. food packaging and product packaging. So there is a good opportunity here for for relative stability in what could otherwise be a very volatile situation in the stock market. Yeah, so let's see. HH Recycling says he's a real boring dividend investor too. Yeah. And I've got nothing against people that try to play the market that, they're hoping to buy low, sell high. They're trying to do the, momentum kind of investing and stuff. That's just not me. It's not, I don't have the time or the expertise to be successful in that kind of market approach. So that's why I'm just really boring. I want a nice, safe stock that's going to generate money for me year over year that I don't have to worry about them constantly. Let's see. Yeah, Mike, I think you're right. They've been doing a lot of capital investment, so I think you're right. That dip was, and if I did a little more research, I probably could answer that even more affirmatively. But I'm pretty sure you're right there, Mike. Okay. You don't want to buy shark stocks, man. You you don't want to buy you don't want to buy stock in me. Nope, 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 nope. Well, look, everybody, it has been a fantastic hour. I can't believe the time has flown by so quickly. Um, if you have autoplay enabled, then when I disconnect this stream, you will be automatically redirected to Ireland, where we will join Scrapping Irish, who is already in motion, I'm sure. And we will continue the discussions. You never know what's going to happen over in Ireland. You never know who's coming up on the panel. We don't know where the talks go because it's a more free flowing interchange of ideas and stuff over there. So if you don't have autoplay enabled, please go to YouTube, just type up in that search bar Scrapping Irish and click on the link to take you over to Ireland, and we can have a lot of fun over there. And I think here is